we were listening to the episode with Courtney Warner, and after you guys got done talking about the Corvette Lane show, Sarah just looked at me and was like, "You did that. Like that was you." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, that was me."
You're listening to the podcast, Clean Comedy Chats with your host, Drew Davis. It's gonna be awesome and will change your life forever. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Welcome back to the Clean Comedy Chats podcast. Thank you all for being here. We have another episode. We're back to virtual. I feel like the past two episodes have been live and in person, and honestly, virtual episodes are a little bit easier, more convenient. So this is the podcast where we interview each week a different comedian from the Clean Comedy Collective. And this week, all the way from Murray, Kentucky, we have my friend Brad Bowser. How you doing, Brad? I said
I'm just
Bowser, Browser.
that.
I
That's
literally asked
okay.
you, confirmed, and then I guess I was thinking about Mario and said your last name incorrectly.
You are not the first, nor will you be the last
I
to do
I do
this.
think Bowser would be a cool last name, but yours is Browser, so we'll
Browser,
get
yeah,
we'll get Brad Bowser on next week or something. But
yeah.
Brad Browser is here with us today.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going great. It's been a chill Saturday so far, so it's and it's not much going on, but sometimes that's good.
Yeah, those you got to have those chill weekends or chill days, and they can't all be. I mean, sometimes it's more fun to rush, and especially as a
Hmm.
comedian, have gigs after gigs after gigs. But you do need that day, otherwise you just collapse.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
Um, and before we get in our conversation with Brad, just a friendly reminder, cleancomedycollective.com. That's where you can find all of our episodes. That's where you can find every comedian in our network. We have about 230 from about 30 different states. Brad is part of the Kentucky page. I'm on the Tennessee page. There's upcoming shows, and we're going to talk about it here in a little bit. Brad actually runs one of our most successful shows in Murray, Kentucky, which is the mecca of comedy. That's where all great comedians get started, is in Murray, Kentucky, and he runs it at a bowling alley, which is exactly where all shows should happen. And we'll get more into
Yeah.
that. And then I've loved interacting with everyone who's been watching this podcast or listening to it, and we get comments, and so we're happy. Brad, we actually are starting to have like a small little following, which is kind of cool. Like I think it's going to get bigger, but
That's
there's
awesome.
like people, like I'm noticing reoccurring states and cities listening to our podcast every when I look at the analytics. So
I
uh
love it.
so if you're one of those people that, this is your Saturday afternoon activity is to listen to Clean Comedy Chats, first of all, thank you. Secondly, if you don't mind, at some point in whatever you're listening to us, please drop us a review, a 5-star rating, something, just to, because that helps us get out there more. So any kind of nice comment on the episode, if it's YouTube or especially with any of the podcast listening platforms, give us a 5-star rating. And if you don't, that's okay. But it helps. So I
But we
can't
will
force you.
find where you live.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
The next week I'm just traveling around, going door to door. I see which cities each, and so I'm going to go door after door in every city and be like, "Hey, you listen to the Clean Comedy Chats podcast, and if so, have you dropped a review?" And that's not going to happen. But we already gave away some of Brad's secrets. He's a comedian from Murray, Kentucky. He runs a wonderful monthly show at Corvette Lanes. And Brad, you've been performing for I'm gonna guess here. I want to say 3 years. How long have you been a comedian?
I really it's about 2 years. I actually took the stand up one class at Third Coast back in April of 24.
Yeah.
And ever since then, like for the first for that, I don't. I really honestly don't consider 2024 to be like my start because I really wasn't doing much like open mics, and that was about it. But 2020 last year is when I really started to get serious about it, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. And it's been a wild ride so far, so it's been awesome.
What's been some of your favorite comedy related things that you've been able to do since you got serious, man? What are some of like the highlights for you?
Honestly, I can't think of any like like one particular show that stands out,
Mhm.
but honestly, just getting to meet all these different comedians and all these people working with comedy, and like, when I first started, I was so intimidated by, like, it was like, oh, these people, I'm 39, I'll be 40 this December, and I just started, so like I feel like I was sort of behind already, and like these people
Mhm.
had been, people 10 years younger than me have already been doing it for 10 years. And so, but like everybody that I've met has been wonderful. There's nobody that's been like, oh, I really, I don't want to, if I never see this person again, it'll be too soon,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
so it's just, it's just getting to meet the people, getting to travel and see, see places. Honestly, if I had to pick up one like show venue, I did, even though it was an open mic, I being on stage at the Zanies Lab open mic, it was, even though like I only had 3 minutes, I went last, like there were maybe 15 people there. It was it was a highlight, really, because I've been
Yeah.
going to Zanies for, years before I even started comedy.
Mm.
So to be able to be on that stage in some capacity, it was a thrill. I loved it.
I understand how you feel about that because I believe my first time I ever performed at Zanies was it was like the graduation showcase at a comedy class I took. So like
Okay.
you couldn't help but feel like you kind of paid to get on that stage, so to
Yeah.
speak, you know.
Yeah.
But I remember that show and I remember getting on stage and for me it felt really cool that like just when you think about all the famous comedians and legends that have been standing exactly where you're standing, or like you, like that's where I was introduced to comedy. That's where I got to watch comedy.
Hmm.
And this is really dumb, but it's related. But whenever I used to, get the 2 item minimum every time you go to Zany. So I'd always get a Dr. Pepper and then the pretzel bites. And that was
Hmm.
my go-to 2 items for whatever snack. And then like that first time performing, not having to pay for the Dr. Pepper and the pretzel bites, I was like, wow.
I've made it. I've made
Yes,
it.
absolutely. But I can appreciate that, and I think it's and we talk about sometimes in this podcast the importance of taking the wins. When you like looking at all the accomplishments and
Hmm.
everything, whether it's big or small, because the longer you do comedy, hopefully the more wins you get. But you do a lot of emailing and getting no
Hmm.
responses, and trying out for a comedy competition and maybe not winning the competition, and
Yeah.
like there's a lot of times where you just kind of like, well, we tried. So
Yeah.
whenever we do have those cool moments, we got to take a moment and appreciate it.
And
So
actually, you bring that up. I remembered that I did the funniest person in Louisville last year, and it was my first comedy competition, and I actually made it to the semifinals. And I was
yeah,
like, and I'd only been doing comedy really, like, I don't want to say like, not passionately, but like seriously, for like the last month or so. So to like be, I was like,
yeah,
wow, like I like that was I guess kind of a little bit of a defining moment for me, because it proved to myself that like I can be funny outside of my hometown and outside of
yeah,
being, in
absolutely.
people that know
And
me.
and let's talk about the funniest person in Louisville. You obviously when you were there. No, like
Yeah.
because I'm realizing I don't think I've spent a lot of time on this podcast with the guests talking about like contests and
Hmm.
competitions and stuff like that. But that's a really good one. So
Yeah.
I'd love to talk more about your experience and what it was like entering it and doing it and like takeaways. Just like would you do it again? Have you applied to do it
Oh yeah,
again this year?
yeah.
Okay,
I
cool. So.
I applied to do it again this year. The Craig Ewing, the guy that
Mhm.
runs it, he uh scheduled me for June 13th, but that is the date of the June Corvette Lanes show. And
Okay.
so yeah, so I haven't heard back from him yet, but I think I'm going to be on like May 29th, or somewhere in the next few weeks. But yeah, I doing that. It's yeah, it was so fun. Like I I was really nervous going into it, because I'm like I said, like these are people I don't know. I actually did have two friends actually buy tickets to see me and my wife,
That's
who
cool.
you'll
Yeah.
talk to later.
Yeah, she's
Um,
coming to join us next week.
yeah,
Flash for us in a couple hours,
yeah,
but for the listeners, you'll get to hear from Brad's wife next week.
yeah.
We're gonna drill her about questions about Brad. We're just gonna
Yeah.
say like we're instead of
Oh
comedy, let's
boy.
talk about your husband. So it might be a different kind of comedy. So yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I would do it again. I met like I said, I met so many great people there. I met John Dollar,
He's
national comedian.
delightful,
Yeah,
and
he
he's
really
real
is.
good. He's real
Yeah.
good.
Oh yeah. I mean, he
It's
ended up
when he's
winning it.
on
Yeah.
when yeah oh yeah, that's right, I forgot about that. But like when he's on stage, it appears effortless. But like
Oh yeah.
I know from seeing him at the mics how much work he puts on. But he's just got this
It's
real
he is
casual vibe up there, and it's really funny. So
he is the kind of comedian that like I saw a video on Facebook the other day that talked about like comedians or comic people, or comic actors. They're not, the guy was saying, overall they're not nice people,
hmm.
and for whatever reason. But like, I I have never had an interaction with John that I haven't been like, okay, we're
Yeah,
like, I would talk to him. Yeah.
he is a genuinely nice guy. Yeah.
A genuine nice
So
guy. Yeah. So let's just spend the next hour talking about John.
yeah, that's
Uh,
our new topic of yeah,
that's our new topic.
yeah, so
But yeah, though I met him. I met a lot of comedians from Louisville. Some of which I've had on the Corvette Lanes show. And I've done some shows in Louisville with with them, and it's just
mhm,
seeing like how so many people out there doing the exact same thing that you're doing, trying to make it,
mhm.
trying to do as many shows. It really gives you a sense of camaraderie. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I know exact, I mean you may be like level above me, or like you're doing more show, but like I understand the grind that you have to go through
Mhm.
to be able to get to where you are now.
Yeah. And when you meet each other on a contest or at a festival, or even just on the same show, or at the same mic,
Mm-hmm.
there, even if it's someone who is like several years ahead of you or in a kind of different part of the career or whatever. Actually, it was John Christ who told me this. I met him for the first time doing a new material Monday at Zany's, and so like
Mm-hmm.
he's backstage when I get off stage after my set, and new material Mondays is kind of like a fancy open mic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're our level, you go there and you do your great stuff because you want to impress Zanies. But if you're John Chris level, it's like an open mic. You're trying
Yeah.
out new stuff. But that was the first time I met him, so I said, "Hey, man, I've enjoyed your stuff. Just I'm just a fan." And he responded with, "We're meeting, backstage on the same show, so today we're equals." And like objectively, I don't think that's true, but I did kind of appreciate that. And that's kind of, and I look at that now anytime I go into any show, any contest, any whatever. Because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I do. I'm starting to feel like an old man in comedy. Like we're getting closer to 15 years of doing it. And I was on a showcase just last night at an ice cream shop, like with newer comedians that this is maybe their second or third or first year. But you know what? While we're on that showcase, we're all doing the same thing,
Yeah.
And so, uh,
Yeah, it like, and kind of speaking to that a little bit, and it's something that I've talked with my wife about a lot, is that feeling of starting at, well, I guess when I started I was 38, but
mm,
like being there now almost 40, but only been doing it for a year, like I feel behind. But
mm,
then we talk about how, like, a lot of comedians, they, what's this, like, with age comes wisdom. Like,
mhm.
we've lived life, we've had heartbreaks, we've had a lot of
Yes.
ups, we've had a lot of downs. We have sources of material that, and not say anything bad about younger comedians, but that a lot of younger comedians don't have, because they
Yeah.
haven't lived a lot of life yet. So
That's very true. And I absolutely, I tell people when I like work with comedians and I consult, because like that's a common thing for older or middle-aged comedians. Like, man, well, I didn't start in my early 20s, so do I really have a shot at this? And it's like, well, two things. One, you have a different audience, or there's an
mhm,
audience for every person. So no
exactly.
matter when you start, like your people will find you and
Mhm.
value what you're doing. And we all got to start somewhere. So, but I remember years ago when I tried to, when I started doing comedy full time, I was really stressed out of the fact that I was starting it in my mid 30s, full force doing it, and there were people 10 years younger and it felt like there was just one route that you could go to with comedy, and I was
Mhm.
far past that. And I've since then learned that that's so not the case. Like there's
Yeah,
because at
absolutely.
some point you got to learn when you're building your career. You start by doing kind of the same things and the learning the basics of comedy and learning the basics of
Mhm.
the grind and the basics of getting booked, and that's something we all have in common. But at some
Yeah,
point you have to become unique. At some point
that's
you have
right.
to, and when that happens, no matter how old you are, no matter what kind of comedy you do, no matter what you do, like you can make it work. And I've
Mhm.
I've that's been something I've been reassured in this podcast because I talk to different people each week who have like, especially the past few episodes, they've like had a different direction. We've talked to corporate comedians, we've talked to like church comedians, we've talked to comedy club comedians, we've talked to comedians who specialize in fundraiser shows. Like you
Mhm.
find the thing that works for you, and that's how you build your career. So
Exactly.
um
Exactly.
so but something's cool about contests and festivals and stuff like you're talking about is some of those same people you met this past year and started building relationships and started networking with, you'll see next year at the
Mhm.
or you'll see, I guess I should say, you'll see this year at the
Yeah.
Louisville, and then you'll go to some random other event in some different state and you'll see them again there because they're doing the same things that you're doing. And so that's been one of my favorite things about doing comedy is some of these people who I really just know when we're on shows or contests together, but like then I sit back and I think like, wow, I've known them for a decade. Like, well, we're still doing it, and
We're still
it's
doing
a
it.
it's a unique relationship. It's special because you and every other comedian is like the same kind of crazy. Like
Mhm. Oh
there's
yeah,
a
absolutely.
little bit of crazy and delusional that has like made us get to what we're doing. So that's cool. And then another thing I wanted to comment on with your answers about the contest is something I'm very proud that hear you say, and something to remind any comedian listening who considers comedy contests. I loved that all of the things you got out of the contest weren't necessarily like you weren't like because a lot of people go and they just want to win. And if
Mhm.
they win, they have a great experience. And if they don't win, it's like the worst experience ever. But all of your takeaways, I think, are very valid reasons that people should do comedy contests. You talked about, well, first and foremost, you talked about it was being fun. It was a good time. You also talked about the people you met and the connections you made, and how, and that's this is a business of relationships. You
Mhm.
before you start getting booked by comedians on their shows, you got to meet those comedians. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
uh,
I had this like this mindset when I first started. It was like if I ask or reach out to another comedian or another booker or whatever to be on a show, like somehow that doesn't count. Like it only counts if they come to me as like,
right.
hey, we saw your stuff, we really like you, we want you to be on our show, and that's just not.
That's just not the way it
Yeah,
works. Yeah.
exactly.
And I mean, I'm sure you do this with this through booking your show. It's something I experience. There are plenty of people I would love to book on my shows that I hate to say it, but I forget about them until they send me a message.
Yep.
And then as soon as I get that message, like, oh, I've been meaning to book this person. So like for comedians, it's important to regularly ask people. You want to make sure
Mhm.
you have the act to back it up, but
Oh
like
yeah.
if you're just waiting for anyone to ask you, like Netflix is never gonna call you. Dry Bar is never
That's
gonna
true.
call you.
Yeah.
Like they got a full. Zanies is never gonna call you until maybe you have that relationship where they like, oh, that's reliable acting. And even then, though, they'll call, especially when you first start. They may call you if it's the night of and they had a last minute cancellation, and for whatever reason you were the first or seventh person that they thought about in the sixth, and then maybe they'll call
Mhm.
you. But before that point, you have to get on their radar by reaching out to
Mhm.
them. So,
Exactly.
well, speaking of shows, let's get to talking about Corvette Lanes.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about this, I would be remiss to say, when this episode airs, which will be May 9th, is actually the night of your show. Your show is
Hmm.
happening tonight. If people are listening to this
Yep.
as an all new episode, both me and Brad will be there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's sold out yet or not.
It's not.
Oh,
Well, it's
well,
so
but
it.
maybe by the
Oh,
ninth, though.
by the night, yeah. Hopefully, it will. I'm pretty sure it will be because like it, and I'm sure you booking shows, you've run the same kind of like roller
mm,
coaster. You book a show, and for 3 weeks you just stress that nobody like oh like because we've got some ticket we're
Yeah.
about between a quarter and a third sold right now, which is pretty much on par with how all the shows we've had
Yeah.
do. And then like the day before, the day of, it's just boom. It's like
Yeah.
people remember
Everyone shows up. Yeah.
no matter how many posts I make, no matter how much I put into ads, no matter how much advertising I do, it's like, okay, we're not going to buy tickets until the day before, day of.
Right. Do you ever struggle with like if you do a show where like not a ton of people come and then you almost feel like you're letting down the comedians? Is that something you struggle with?
That is the number one thing the one thing I struggle with like for instance that show is like because like my wife and I we're trying to rebuild the comedy scene here in Western Kentucky for like because before COVID it was growing. It was a lot of comedians. COVID hit, everything stopped, and so we've been trying to build it back up, and I think part of that is showing out of town comedians like,
Hmm.
hey, this is a place where people want to hear comedy. They might see it on Netflix, but like they want live comedy. And so
Yeah.
I guess what it is I feel bad that they, drove an hour and a half, 2 hours, however long they did for five people.
I feel the same way when I have those kind of shows where like not a ton of people come. But it's what I've learned is because and you always have to think you always it's helpful to switch the position and imagine you coming to a show as the comedian and not the
Mm-hmm.
producer. So often we're like, oh my gosh, it's so frustrating, or they must hate me, or it's to be
Yeah.
so disappointed. But like as a comedian, I've shown up to a show with just a handful of people and totally loved being there just because it was a time to perform and do what I love.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I think as producers, uh we stress over that more than the actual talent. So I'm learning to
Yeah.
show myself a little bit of grace in that. So you should show yourself some grace too. That being said, as a producer, it's also our job to make sure that more people get to the show. So like
Exactly.
you still want to do something about it, but like to just go home and never sleep again because of the disappointment that you've caused. So I don't know if
It's
we gotta show ourselves a little bit of grace on that one.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
but well, tell me about. I think I'm eventually gonna get to talking about your all's
Corvette Lanes. Yeah.
productions event. But first, yeah, tell us about Corvette Lanes. By
Yeah.
the way, I'm so sorry.
No, you're
I
fine.
keep asking you a question and then interrupting you, but it needs to be said. This might be one of our most successful Clean Comedy Collective shows.
I love
It's
it.
hard.
I
We have
love
a
it.
bunch all over the place, but I feel like this one might have the best reputation.
I
So
love
go
it.
ahead.
I love it. Well, it was like we started back last year. September of last year was our first show with Matt Blevins and well, our feature Joel Beasley was going to be our. I had a local feature. He wasn't able to make it. I asked Joel Beasley, who's a great comedian in Nashville.
Mhm.
He got sick
Oh
like
no.
and couldn't make it that day, and so I basically just and my wife Sarah was on the show, so I basically just texted a bunch of my comedian friends that are local. It's like, hey, can you do just 10 minutes clean? And it ended up being like it ended up selling out. It was a great show, a great start to the
Cool.
show. But yeah, it was it started because I was reading this book, Mastering Stand Up by Stephen Rosenfield, which I highly recommend to everybody. But it one of the things that really stuck out to me is he talked about how basically how like sometimes you have to make your own opportunities.
Mhm.
And so whether the best way is to start your own show, like whether it's monthly, bi-monthly, every other week, whatever. And so I thought, oh, great. Like that's something I can do. Cause like I've been performing pretty much all my life. And I started singing in church. I was a undergraduate musical theater, opera major, did a lot of community theater after I graduated and stuff. So I've been performing all my life. So I know what it takes to produce a show, from tickets to talking with the people to get on to like lights and seats and whatever. So I thought, okay, so we started, my wife and I started, brainstorming places in town. And one of our friends, one of the people she used to work with, owns the bowling alley here, Corvette Lanes. And we was like, what, like what if, like, just what if we did it? And so we went there one day and we looked at the room. It was like, this could work. This might be able to work. And so I made the plan. I made the scheduled the meeting to talk to him about, like, hey, I'd love to do a, show here, be a regular thing, whatever. And I had this thing all planned out in my head. It was like, okay, if you give me because like the room to rent the room was like $100 or something. I don't even remember. But I was like, if you'll let me have the room for free and help me take care of the comics in some way, I'm gonna bring like 40. I think 46 is total what it can hold. 46 people into, and they'll buy out, they serve alcohol,
Yeah.
they'll buy food, they'll buy drinks, they'll buy, that. But and like, if I'll bring, this is that, you give me this, I'll give you that sort of thing.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And so I go to sit down with them, and the very first thing that they say is, we love stand-up comedy, we'll give you the room for free, we'll help you take care of the comics. And I was like, I have nothing left to say. Like, I had this
That's
whole
so great. Yeah.
defense of like, okay, this is why you should let me do this. And they're like, yeah, we're on board
They're
with
on
it.
board already. Yeah.
Which is totally a great start. It like, and they've been nothing but great to work with. But yeah, so yeah, we I booked it. It was back in July. We had the meeting, so I booked it for September because I wanted to give a few months to like build up
Absolutely.
the notice for it. And yeah, ever since then it's been we've had, like I said, we've had John DeToy, we've had Matt Blevins, we've had Courtney, who you had on recently,
Yeah.
Courtney Warner. uh, and one of the things that when I started out this show, one of the things that I knew I wanted to do with the show is I wanted to make sure that in every show there was at least one person who was not a white male. So
Absolutely.
like, and so like and I say that in this last show we had Jay Covis, it was all white men.
Yeah.
Which, sometimes that happens.
So now,
But
yeah,
like,
sometimes it happens, but
yeah, but like that was something that was really important to me, is to make sure that whatever platform I had, helped, bring in, what, women comedians, minority comedians, whatever.
hmm,
Just so, because like their voice is as valuable as anybody else's. Like,
absolutely.
they deserve to be heard too. And so that was like, that's what I want to make sure that I have at least some representation like that in every show. And it's been great. I've had, it's so weird because like in the last couple months, I've had comedians reach out to me. It's like, hey, I've heard great things about the show, I would love to be a part of it. And I'm at the point out where, like, as of yesterday, like, I'm booked through the rest of the year. So
That's
like I've got
amazing.
comedians through the rest of the year. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
just,
wonderful.
yeah, it's just been such a cool thing, because like Western Kentucky, there are a lot of good things about Western Kentucky. Not a lot of live events that are not music.
Hmm.
And music, great. Like, I have a lot of musician friends. They're great. They deserve to have people to have come to their shows. But like, people want to see live comedy here
Hmm.
in Murray, Kentucky, Benton, Mayfield, which, not too far from it, Paducah. And so like that is another way for I feel like I can help build up the scene. And like, someone come in, it's like they see a show and are like, oh, I've always wanted to try stand-up comedy. I don't know how to start. Like, well, we also have open mics. We have
It's
like at this
wonderful.
point now we have at least one open mic going every week. And so we, I always encourage like, hey, if you don't, come to open mic. It's a great place to, see if this is for you.
Mhm.
So Corvette Lanes has been great. They've been great to work with. It's a show that I want to do for as long as I can, as long as people will want to come see
If
it.
you coming, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. I mean, and I know a big chunk of the success of that show is all the work that you put into it, that Sarah puts into it, that you guys as wonderful producers. But one thing that you said at the very beginning that it's so important, and people who are thinking about producing shows or looking to produce shows should hear this. Um, there is no substitute to when the venue is behind it as well. There's
Absolutely.
yes, there's I interact with a lot of venues, and I've had mixed reactions of like ones who are super into the show having a show, and ones who kind of assume like, okay, we'll open the doors and then you do all the work, and maybe they don't promote it as well, or maybe they don't
Hmm.
support it as much. And you can tell in attendance with shows like that. You can,
Yeah.
sometimes it's oftentimes a lot of the folks that reach out to us here in Nashville, they're kind of dying businesses or restaurants that aren't long for this world, and they think,
All right.
"Wow, if someone brings a comedy show and that'll save us," and it
It
does not.
does
But
not.
but
Yeah.
but I have in producing my own shows, but in also working with people as they produce shows. Um, it makes such a difference when your venue's behind it, whether that's the PR, what even just being positive and excited about it, like that first
Yeah.
conversation you mentioned, like when because you feel as the producer, you feel less alone. You feel like you're not just doing it yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
And it's like, and like for Corvette Lanes, and like I said, they've been great, but I've put, like, I'm the one that pays for
mm,
the comment. Like, they provide the venue, which is more than enough for me to be able to say,
mm,
okay. And there's something like I actually had a venue reach out to me a few weeks ago and saw how like successful the shows that my wife and I have been producing, and they're like, yeah, we'd love to start a quarterly comedy night, and I went, and it's this little place in Paris, Tennessee called Paris Station. Great venue. It's got like holds like 150, 200 people, something along those lines.
yeah,
And I've had a couple conversations with the owner. They're 100% behind it. Yeah, and like you said, it's so it's I didn't produce a show, but I had a show at a venue. Uh, I won't say where because if
mm,
people listening to it, they might know. But venue, and it was the kind of thing like a friend of mine was producing it. He had me on, and it was clear that they weren't the venue wasn't into it. Like, oh
mhm,
yeah, yeah, sure, we'll do comedy. It was on a Sunday evening, like an hour and a half before they closed.
mm.
And the people, quite a few people came, but it was you could tell that the venue was not excited about it, and it kind of it affected affected the
Yeah, it
show.
makes a difference. It
Yeah.
really does. But your Corvette Lane show sounds fantastic. I'm
Oh yeah.
excited about doing it
Me
next
too.
week slash if you're listening to it like tonight.
Tonight.
So what we're gonna do? I just so everyone knows, if you from wherever you're listening,
Hmm.
if you look at our notes section for this episode, well, of course, we'll have all of Brad's links that he'll tell us about later
Hmm.
before I end our chat. But we're also and I don't know if it'll be sold out or not, but we're gonna put the link for I'll put the link for the Corvette Lane show too, if you guys are able to get a ticket. And if not, sorry, it's a week ahead. I have no way of knowing whether you'll be able to get ticket. Don't send me hate mail if you click on it and can't get a ticket. But this is in Murray, Kentucky, and me and Brad will be there, and it'll be a lot of fun. Do you feel like you're more of a producer or a comedian? Which hat is more fulfilling?
Well, for me, and I also want to say that, like, as much as I do, Sarah, my wife, does as much or even more to like. She is absolutely a staple and a pillar in this. Western Kentucky community. But it's fun. Like I, this is gonna be I don't know bad as that. Like I don't want to be a producer for the rest of my career.
Mhm.
I love being on stage. I love performing, and I love being able to bring comedians in. Like I love producing, but I want to. I like being a producer. Like I like it
Mhm.
does give me a little bit of fulfillment, but ultimately, like, I want to perform more than I produce.
Dude,
So,
I feel that. I agree. Me too.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
so, yeah.
that and like yeah, that's I'm sure that's a common sentiment, but like, but as of right now, like I love producing, I love making the connections, I love making reaching out to people that I've kind of followed since I started, and you know, reaching out, it's like, hey, do you want to do, I have this venue, a show, would you be, and like in my mind, and it's anxiety for sure, but like in my mind, that I'm always afraid they're gonna be like, absolutely not. That like, why would you even bother messaging me about
Mhm.
just going off? But almost every person, if they've not been already booked on a show, they're like, yeah, I would love to do
Yeah.
that. And so people outside of Western Kentucky know that this is a scene that you guys can go. Like I've told a lot of people from Nashville, from Louisville. Also, like if you're like, hey, I would love to have come up to Murray or Paducah or wherever, sometime. We may not have a show already, but my wife and I have good relations with a lot of venues. That the fact is, we could probably make a show specifically for you and whoever. Obviously we vet people, and like if you're
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
jerk to work with, or your material is like, I don't think we want that. Like, we're not just like letting everybody.
It is hard as a producer. You do get lumped into the role more of a producer than a performer. People forget that you're also a comedian. People, I do feel like, and you do kind of with other producers, a challenge when you're a comedian and a producer is a general vibe someone might have is like, well, if they're not going to put me on their show, why would I put them on my show? They haven't reached
Hmm.
out to me, so I don't know if I want to reach out to
Yeah.
them. Whereas if you don't produce shows, people just judge you based off of your merit of your performance alone. And so
Hmm.
I'm in a space where like I wish more people knew that I'm a qualified headliner as I'm also a producer
Hmm.
as well. In
Yep.
fact, I probably am a better headliner than I am a show producer. Like I'm probably a better comedian than I am a producer. But if I be if I'm being
Yeah.
honest,
Oh yeah.
so there and this is one of those years from now we'll have you back on another episode and we'll see if this is an accurate statement that I'm saying here. We might be, I might be,
Yeah.
but it seems like what a lot of comedians do that kind of go from producing more to like they want to headline more and travel more and all that is they build their show, they build their scene, they build their whatever to the point where they're not doing it by themselves. That's one of the biggest
Hmm.
reasons we have a clean comedy collective and not just Drew's comedy shows, you
Yeah.
know?
True. Scott.
Um, because the goal is I love it when I'm able to take a show and pass it on to somebody and they take it and keep it going and keep it the same awesome thing that I started and was passionate about. But then when you do that, you free yourself up more to travel and to book. And
Hmm.
so like at some point, I think every serious producer who wants to lean more into headlining has to be because you'll have to travel more and you can't do
Yeah.
your monthly stuff all the time. So what it seems like the really successful ones that I've noticed find it a way to successfully pass on their productions.
Hmm.
And then they keep going. And that's one of my goals of the Clean Comedy Collective. I want it to be a thing where it eventually grows to where it's not just me doing it. And then if I ever did want to like do less, I could step away
Hmm.
and travel more and instead of just produce shows in Middle Tennessee. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that's going to work, but that's a goal.
That's a goal, and that's a good goal to have.
So as a comedian and or producer, or just since you've started this whole doing stand-up comedy journey, what's something you say that you've learned, whether it has to do with comedy or not, like just maybe it's about yourself or maybe it's about comedy and entertainment. Like what's
Hmm.
a big thing that you feel like you've learned in the process of stand-up comedy?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the thing that I have learned the most is that everybody is looking, we live in a world that's getting crazier and crazier as it goes on.
Mhm.
Everybody is looking for some sort of like reprieve from that, whether it be like I I'm having trouble paying the rent, or I'm having, relationship issues or whatever. People want some sort of, however brief, reprieve from that.
Mhm.
And comedy, I think, is a great way to provide that. And I've had a couple people come up to me after shows, or message me. It's like, yeah, I I really love the show. I've been, I had, been laid off. There was one guy that said he had been laid off from his job, and he'd already got tickets to the show, and like our show made him forget about that for just, an hour and a half. And so like that, that sort of
Love
thing,
that.
that's, yeah,
Yeah.
I you know I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. I guess the second thing that I learned is like, and you mentioned it at the beginning too, is like there's an audience for everybody.
Mhm.
Your kind of audience isn't going to be the same as my audience, which isn't going to be the same as this other person's audience. It's, we just have to find it. And, that's, and I obviously I'm still trying to solidify my audience, solidify my comedic voice. But it's good to, I feel like I'm starting to see
Okay.
like, okay, this is the kind of, where it's, mid 30s and up, or whatever. This is kind of the audience that I attract. And that I was like, wow, people pay to like. And that's the thing that I'm like, people pay. And there are some people who have been to every show at Corvette Lanes that I still don't know. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
even though Murray is a town of like 10,000 or less, like I still don't know everybody here. And there are some people that have been at every show, or or close to every show. And it's just wild to me. Like what, like who am I? Like, how did I deserve like someone who's essentially like a follower already, and
Yeah.
like just coming to the show because,
What a privilege, right?
yeah,
Like for
exactly.
like I believe
Exactly.
an earlier episode, someone talked about how they were nervous about doing stand up comedy because like what a responsibility that you were entertaining these people, but also like what a blessing, what a privilege that they're giving you their time, and that you're then what a I don't know, flex or a brag, right, or just something to feel good about that those people that come to your shows every month, like your comedy shows making their lives a little bit better, like, and they
Yeah.
have it on their schedule, like, oh, I want to come
Hmm.
enjoy this piece of entertainment, and that's something that
Yeah.
you're providing, and all of your hard work and
Yeah.
all of the growth, and things you've learned not just as a comedian but as a producer, and how to put things together. All of that is working together to make someone else's life just a little bit better.
Just a little bit
And
better. Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
It was when we were listening to the episode with Courtney Warner, and after you guys got done talking about the Corvette Lane show, Sarah just looked at me and was like, "You did that. Like that was you." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, that was me." And like
Yeah.
I kind of walked around the house a little bit, like,
So
"Yeah,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
I have one more question before I jump
yep,
to ask a comedian questions, and it's a very random question. We've been talking about great, deep, serious stuff, and this might be the deepest, most serious question I ask you. But when I was scrolling through all of your social media and site and stuff, one thing kept coming up, and it was your love for your beard. Do you realize how much stuff about you is like, this is a real beard. This is
this is."
you're welcome. This beard is
I
here.
Yes, I well, and I put that in the description, because so many, like, a lot of people won't see, but if you ever see me, but a lot of people think this I dye this
Oh,
way,
like the
like
gray
that,
part. This
like
everyone needs to jump on YouTube to fully understand what we're talking
yeah,
about. But if you're not on
exactly.
YouTube, Brad
But
has white in his beard.
yeah, not like stripes of white, like not like
Mhm.
my bit, like it's got some gray, but like the front of it, like around my chin, is like solid white. And a lot of people ask me if I diet that way, and like I just keep thinking like, why would I diet just right here and not like the whole thing? And like, like it just surprised me. So I'm like, yes, this is my actual beard. Like
Go
I
ahead and
have the
answer the question before it
yeah,
even comes up. I
exactly.
respect that. I was like, and you know what? It is a mighty beard. Like
Yeah,
the natural white part makes it look more like sagely. Like you look like
yeah,
you
yeah.
just,
Why not? Yeah, I'll
yes.
I'll, I'll proselytize the unwashed
Yeah.
masses. No
Like,
problem.
you look like you could.
Yeah.
We wouldn't question it. We'd be like, so you look like you have a monk background.
I
Because you're not
I
yeah.
I probably could be a monk at some point.
That's great. Well, let me pull up my questions from the
Okay.
comedians. Or is not well, some comedians sent them is from the audience, from our friends. Just a reminder, as people are still listening, this is the Ask the Comedian portion of our show where we have a comedian, so we're going to ask them questions. The way I got these questions is about once a month. I reach out on Facebook and Instagram and Threads, and at Drew Davis Comedy if you ever want to check it out. And I just ask people like, hey, what questions should we ask comedians? And some people give me comedy related questions, and some people give me not comedy related questions. You can always, I've had people comment below on our YouTube videos with questions. So if that's something you want to do, I did have a few people randomly email me a question. So I guess if you want to send me an email with a question to add to the podcast, you can do that. I suppose if you know where I live, which I hope you don't, if I don't know you, you could knock on the door and say like, hey, could you add this to the list of questions?
Drew
I would
Drew's
be
Drew's number is this, so just text him. It'll be
So
at the
yeah, oh
bottom of the
yeah.
screen.
There is actually for all the podcast listeners, there's a button in our notes section where you can press that and send us a message. Hopefully, a nice message. You could send us whatever you want, and if you wanted to send in a question that way, you're more than welcome to. So we are always welcome to questions because we got a different comedian on every week, and we ask them three questions. And if their answers are good, we don't edit it out of our podcast. So
There we
anyway,
go.
so what I need from you, Brad, is three numbers between 1 and 30.
Okay. Let's go 30 because that
Okay.
is the number the day number that Sarah and I got married.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and 9, which is the month that we got married. And so 9, 30, and let's go 21.
21. The age they were when they got married. I don't know. uh, okay. So I got 9, 21, and 30. And also special. I feel like we've mentioned Sarah a lot in this episode. So just if you're listening, next week's episode we'll be interviewing Sarah Hines, and you know,
Yeah, she's great.
this is kind of like a two-parter. Yeah, Brad recommends. So, all right, here's number 30. The question. It comes from Facebook from Joseph Stolz. And this is a good question for you because you probably have people that reach out to you asking to be on shows. So, any tips or advice on how to contact folks about getting comedy spots in their town?
I would say the number one, if they don't know you, send them a clip of you on stage.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't have to be 20 minutes long. In fact, it's better if it's not. Four or 5 minutes is enough. Obviously, if I know the person or I've seen their stuff before, it's they don't necessarily have to do that, but uh, not only for me as a producer, but me as a comedian, like if they don't know, if a booker doesn't know me, introduce myself like, hey,
Mhm.
this is where I'm from. This is kind of the audience I have, whatever, or starting out to have, uh, and just making sure that you know producers know you're funny, and like so send them 5 minutes, your type five, and hope for the best.
I think that's such a great idea. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so many times people reach out and you shouldn't put it on the producer to turn around and be like, "Do you have a video?" You
Mm-hmm.
because They might be busy when they get that message and they may just not want to respond. But if you send me
Yep.
a message with a video on it, I don't have to ask for it. So I'm more inclined to watch it.
Make it as easy for bookers to see how funny you are as possible.
I agree. That's all advice. Okay, next question from Brian Atkinson, who's also a comedian in the Clean Comedy Collective. He's on our episode 3. I think we interviewed him. If you guys are like, "Wow, this is a great question. I wonder what he has to say about things," you can listen to his interview. And this came to us from Threads. And what's the joke that you're most proud of?
Oh man. Um I think there's actually two. And it's one that that is part of my rotation now. Um, one my my wife is one of the funniest people that I've Sarah's one of the funniest people you'll ever meet. She also says some incredibly unhinged things sometimes. Not just like out of the blue. One time she said, I read that and the joke is like, it's important to find a partner that you can learn from. And I learn from my wife every day. She's one of the smartest people I know. Learn from her every day, whether I want to or not, sometimes against my will. But she told me the other day that your skin should be so moisturized, it's like touching a raw chicken breast. And
Huh.
I don't know about you, but I've never touched a raw chicken breast and thought, I want to keep touching this. And like, yeah, that, that I love.
That's a good
And
one.
then I was, cause like and of course this, a lot of comedians know this, but like jokes that like reference like physical features about you is all, I feel like always good for the audience.
Hmm.
And obviously, like if you see this on YouTube, I am balding. Like I have not a lot of hair up here. Um, and I was trying to think like what can I compare this to that has not been done before? Because egghead or like shiny or whatever, like that's
Mhm.
been done to death. And so I thought, oh, it's kind of like a gentrified neighborhood. All the original residents have left, and now all you see is white. And those are the two jokes that I'm probably most proud
Those are good
of.
ones. I like it. You should be proud of them.
Yeah.
So, all right, this is a brutally honest question. It came
Mm.
from Linda from Facebook. She's a comedy fan, very big supporter of the Clean Comedy Collective and just Nashville comedy in general. Uh, uh, do you pursue this field because you truly want to, or are you a comedy addict?
Wow. Okay. Um, that is whoo. We got deep and we're going deeper.
Yeah, I don't know if I should ask that. I was like, well, it's on the list. I have to ask it.
Yeah, that's no, I love it. And this is actually probably a question that Sarah would love to answer too. But I would say when I first started out, it was because I was like I liked comedy and I wanted to tell jokes on stage in
Mhm.
front of people. But now that I've been at it, I'll just say been at it for almost a year, like seriously.
Mhm.
I have found that it is obviously laughs are good. Laughs is what we want, but laughs like being able to we talked about earlier, being able to make people to give a reprieve to whatever they're going through.
Mhm.
That I know that's not exactly the binary options, but I would say now because I want to continue doing this and bringing joy to people, with my stupid little jokes.
Yeah, with your bald head jokes.
With my bald head jokes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, Brett, first of all, thank you so much for being on this podcast, for agreeing to do it. Do you
Yeah.
have what kind of things can you promote or tell us about where to find you
Uh,
and just give us all the information we need
Obviously Corvette Lanes is the big thing. Like,
tonight
and
if you're
yeah,
listening to it
tonight,
on the
yes,
ninth.
tonight. Come see it tonight wherever you are. But Corvette Lanes, like Spellbound Brookery that we talked about earlier, do shows there. As far as where people can find me, I mostly just Facebook and Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I am I am terrible about posting videos of myself and but I'm trying to get better at it. But for anybody that wants to be on a show that my wife or I produce, you can contact me there. Or if want to find shows in the Western Kentucky area, message me there. bradbcomedy@gmail.com is my email me there. I have a TikTok and a YouTube channel that I've not really posted to at all, so probably don't go there because
That's going to
it's
be
not
where
my
everyone
thing.
goes
Yeah,
immediately. They're like,
exactly.
well,
Yeah, like he's only got 3 videos. Let's get him out of here. But yeah. So yeah, I everybody that comes to one of my shows, thank you so much. Literally cannot do this without audience members. And and that's why I say comics. If you're going to be in the Western Kentucky area and like a couple months in advance, or you got want to fill in some dates, message me and I will do my wife or I will do what we can to maybe have you on a show there.
Yeah. I appreciate how approachable and how gracious you are to people, to comedians just trying to create space for
Mm-hmm.
give people the opportunities to perform. And I appreciate is so obvious how much you care about your audience and the folks that are coming. And that's just, I'm so glad that your show is part of what we do as the Clean Comedy Collective. I'm so glad that it's doing so well, because I feel like it represents a lot of what we're trying to do with just trying to create enjoyable, chill, open space for performers, for the audience, no BS, no, no, just we're just having a good time,
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
love that. I love that.
Exactly.
So, and if you guys are like, well, what other shows does the Clean Comedy Collective have? Just a reminder, we have a website. You can check, you can get connected to me or Brad. Brad's in the Kentucky side. I'm in the Tennessee section. You can see what shows we have upcoming for the month of May. And hopefully by the time you look at it, I will have updated the site. It is currently not updated, but it will be updated. That's more information than you all need. Of course, you can listen to previous episodes there's a donate function. We have a Patreon where you can hear the uncut longer episodes where, all the goofy, awkward things I cut out for put in the post editing section will be there on the Patreon. So, and just last thing I want to plug next week's episode that we're literally about to record here in a bit. Sarah Hines will be our guest. We've name dropped her several times in this show. She's the co-producer for the Murray comedy scene with Brad, and they do a lot of shows together. And so we're going to talk to her more about that. She's also a comedian in the collective, so we're going to talk about that. It'll be another good episode. And Brad, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll see you next week / tonight, depending on how time works. And and
it's an illusion anyway.
Yeah,
Time's not real.
Yeah, we'll see you in some plane of existence somewhere. So, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your plane of existence until we see you next week. Have a good one.
Bye guys.
You're welcome.